Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It is mid-June. This is episode 11. My guest for this special podcast is SuperDre, also known as Andrea Wallace. She might be best known as a musician and extremely popular DJ, but underneath the thousands of appearances in clubs and private parties all around the world, Dre has quietly spent the majority of her time as a tech-savvy entrepreneur in the startup space with a stable of startups under her management. If that's not enough, Dre most recently launched a spirits company with her partners called Motu Viget, and they just released a new sparkling wine that's already making waves in bars, restaurants, and will soon be on Meijer shelves and other retailers, really taking sparkling wine by storm. And Dre doesn't pull any punches in this conversation, especially about what it's like to be a female and a minority in the very white, very male world ecosystem of startups and venture capital. If you're looking for a conversation with somebody that inspires you to find more hustle and drive each day, even though you don't feel like you have any idea what you're doing, then this episode's for you. Dre says a lot of the early development and pitches of startup ideas and startup companies is just all guessing and conjecture. So dip a toe in the pool. Don't let anything stop you. This is great. I love Dre. She's been a friend and also somebody that I've worked on a couple projects. She's been subjects of a couple different video projects I've had. And I've always wanted to photograph her. This is the first time I've photographed Dre. And she did not disappoint. So check out the portraits and some video clips on our new website called fullexposurepodcast.com. It is an awesome website. Did I go into that last time? Yes, I did. But I just want you to check out this website. It's one-stop shopping. It has all the portraits we shot, has a bio of each guest. It also has video clips so you can see our conversation. It's pretty great. And so is this episode with Dre. So without further ado, this episode is brought to you by Brian Kelly Photography and Film and Brian Kelly Productions. If you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, we're ready to talk to you. It's been a while. We have pushed off some early inquiries, but because we didn't know what we were doing, quite frankly. And we do. We have some ideas about our metrics and where we're at in the world. So if you're interested in becoming a partner with me on this podcast and helping us do even more and more cool episodes, shoot me an email, brian@briankellyphoto.net. And without further ado, here is my awesome conversation with SuperDre, one of the most driven people I've met in a long time. And it was just fun, man. And check out her dedicated episode page on fullexposurepodcast.com. If anything.
Coffee and...
Yeah, you can roll.
Coffee and one egg.
One egg?
Yeah.
How you make the egg?
I made it over hard.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of...
Nothing runny. Just...
No, I don't really like... I don't know.
Not
I don't mind.
Sometimes
a little bit, but I'm not a huge bread eater, so
Yeah.
I'm not like a toast dipper kind of person.
Dude, I am on a super low carb diet right now.
Yeah.
Craving bread and also everything. Pasta,
You
potato
like
chips. Yeah. Raw potatoes. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go for it.
Ready to spit some hot fire.
Let's do this.
I'm actually fine now.
It was a little warm during a shoot. I always forget to turn the air on because I do the testing and then the lights are a little bit hot and then
Oh, yeah. I guess
and then
that
I
is
will,
true.
of course I have to wear a zipper sweater. So I run a little hot in general.
Yeah, you are famous for the zipper sweaters. I forgot.
Yeah, it's a thing that I can't stop. But it's because people, we were talking earlier about it too, is like people only remember one thing about social media.
Yeah.
Like they only remember that you traveled somewhere and then they're like, you were gone all the time.
Yeah. It's like,
And then I post a couple times about zipper sweaters. It's a brand.
on.
It's a brand.
It is now.
It is fire. That if I could do one thing would be bring more zipper sweaters to the world. When really it's just a device to hide behind when you're not happy with your body at the moment. 50 years old and yo-yoing like a professional. Well, we just finished the photo shoot. You've had to do a lot of photo shoots, I would imagine, over the years.
Yeah.
And do you enjoy that process of being photographed? I'm really happy with what we shot, but just in general.
You know what? I am when I can when it's not for something like really major, it's totally fine. Like it doesn't even bother me at all. But like
So
if
you
it's
must
like
have been
something
so
where we have
intimidated
to
about
get
this
the
conversation.
shot or whatever, like then I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even. And usually, like, if it's something that's like we have to nail a shot like really fast, like if it's for a magazine or something, then I'll have a friend come with me because I'm like, I need you to tell me if I'm holding my face weird.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not a model.
You need a crew, a posse of people to.
And they'll be like, your face looks weird. Stop doing that. I need someone to tell me.
See, that would actually make me feel worse. And then all of a sudden you're over conscious of your face. And then they're like, should I hold my cheeks like this? And then you're frozen. And then the worst direction, I think sometimes if I were to receive it would be stop doing that.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What am I doing?
Breathing.
It's like, I need oxygen, people. Well, cool. You're somebody, Dre, I wanted to talk to you for a long time. We go back a few years. Mm-hmm. We've done a couple video projects together for
Pure Michigan.
Pure Michigan. We did Experience Grand Rapids. Gosh, I don't even know. But you're always somebody I run into downtown because you're interesting because most people might know you as this SuperDre. Mm-hmm. And who's the character of SuperDre? As this great DJ.
Yeah, it's funny. SuperDre actually was just my nickname from when I was like in the 4th grade.
Had nothing to do with music.
Well, it did. Persona. Like, so I played music when I was a kid. My mom taught us how to like play piano when we were really young. And once we got older, then I got into band and everything. And I started out on one instrument, and then I picked another one. And so, like, my friends would be like, oh, my gosh, you're like SuperDre because you play all these instruments. So then the name just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, when I started producing music and stuff and DJing and everything, I was like, well, I should probably pick a name because I don't want people to use my real name.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'll just do SuperDre.
Well, it's perfect. It stuck. And that, in a way, is how that's a good segue, although I'm jumping way ahead, is you multitasking and doing many things well is really what I think that you're an entertainer and a DJ and you do music production and that type of stuff. But that's like, to me, maybe what, 5% of what you do?
Probably like 10%.
10?
Used to be quite a bit more, but now I kind of have my tentacles in other things. But they're all somewhat related. Just it's true though. Like usually people know this thing or that thing or that thing, but it's kind of rare that they know them all. And like it's only been recently that I've just been kind of like, you know what? Here's the whole thing.
Well, it depends. It depends how you're interacting with people, and we'll get into specifically what you do later. But whether it's in the business world or the startup world, those people might not even know you have this whole other music side of you, and then music people are like, "What? I didn't even know that you do this or that."
Yeah, I get that all the time.
Yeah. All right, this is a standard. I apologize in advance, but this is a standard question. But musical interests in music growing up, like if there's 4 or 5 things that was like, man, that shaped me when I was in high school or junior high.
I mean, I was in band and symphony and marching band and jazz band. So I've always been really like appreciative of like classical music, like traditional classical music. And just instrumental music in general. I think just because I was playing the instrument, so I really just enjoyed like the tone of music without people singing or like a lyricist or anything like that. So I've always liked instrumental music probably first. Then, like, I was in a band for a while, too. I played guitar in a band.
Really?
So, like, yeah, like, I really like, I like a wide variety of music. I've always really liked jazz, too.
Yeah.
I love, like, instrumental hip-hop, just, like, beats and stuff.
Yeah. Most of the music I've heard that you produced hasn't, like, sampled a lot of vocals necessarily. They tend to be really, they're not all chill, but that sort of a chill wave vibe. It's just great for it's great for the clubs maybe as well as just having on while you're working. Like
Yeah.
It's kind of like hits that sweet spot for me.
Yeah, I do a lot of like kind of like that lo-fi like kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That it's nice to have in the background,
Yeah.
but it's like you can still groove to it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just overpowering and
Yeah.
taking over all your senses,
Yeah.
and you can't have a conversation. You know, maybe that's a 50-year-old thing. Is like, I can't go to a bar now if the music's loud, or if concerts are different. But like, if you're just going to meet somebody for dinner or for a drink later,
I think it's something that happens when you turn 30.
Yeah.
Because I find myself now, like going out to a place, if it's insanely loud, I'm like,
You're out.
like, unless it's a club where I
Sure.
expect it to be loud.
You gotta be
But like,
important.
if I'm going and like we're going to like hang out and like talk to friends or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like the most irritating thing.
I
And I'm like,
hate-
am I old now that I hate that?
You're old. Speaking of age, how old are you now? 'Cause
36.
36. All right. Yeah. So once you hit 30, it's like, no, I don't want to feel strained to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But I want music. It just has to be at a level that isn't competing with your 4 top or 6 top of friends.
Yeah.
You know. Were you even thinking about DJing, or were you messing around with mixing anything on your own at the point?
Yeah, so it's funny, like I was making music then that I didn't have the concept of, I mean, whatever, I was probably like 14. It's not like I had been to a club before.
Right,
so
right.
it's like that's the kind
The
of stuff
local roller rink, maybe?
Yeah, that's the stuff you see on TV. I didn't really have a concept of, I knew what DJs did. I knew what they were. Like I knew like a lot of like hip hop DJs really at that time. So it was more like probably like DJ Premier and like Kid Capri and like Jazzy Jeff. Like those
Yeah.
were when I thought of a DJ like as a kid. Like that's what I thought of because
Right.
they were on MTV and stuff all the time.
Sure, when they played music
Yeah, right.
and videos, yeah.
So yeah, that's what I thought of then. But I had no concept that the music that I was making was actually like for clubs, like because I was making house and stuff and like techno, but I didn't really know that that's what it was.
Right.
I was just making stuff that I thought was cool, like that I liked, and it wasn't until later that people were like, "You should like play this stuff out."
Right.
And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how to DJ." So then I learned how to DJ.
Yeah. But that's a cool thing because I think a lot of there's something about that naivete about just doing something that you're interested in and you don't really have an end game in mind. Is that applied to other parts of your life and businesses? There's like you don't really know what you're doing, but
Yeah. I don't always know how to get to where I'm going, but like I know what I want the end goal to be like.
Yeah.
I can always, because I can picture it. Usually like once I visualize something like blinders are on, there is nothing that's gonna stop me from getting there.
Yeah.
So like I have like a laser focus like that, but in terms of getting there, I don't always know how it's gonna happen. But
have you been able to, is that something you've had early on, like even with school or other
Yes.
types of goals outside of school that
Yeah.
you just could focus?
yeah, if
Because
you
I have I'm a little more of an artist scattered brain, a little bit of like squirrel ADD. But if I really am focused on something, like nothing can pull me away from
Yeah.
it. And but you're like that
I've
just
been
from
like
the jump.
that with most things. I think if you ask my parents, they would tell you the same thing. Like when I was, like if I was gonna win the science fair, like I would lock myself in the room and come up with the most elaborate possible experiment in the world, like to make sure that I won the science fair. Like I've always just kind of been like that.
Where's that? Yeah. So do you know where that drive comes from?
I
Is it
don't
about
know.
being competitive? Were you, did you do sports? Were you competitive at all in sports?
So
or
I
is it
didn't
just
really
more-
play sports.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of extracurricular activities though. Like I did dance and stuff. Like I
Yeah.
did ballet, tap, jazz, modern dance, you name it. That's really why I didn't have time for sports.
Sure.
But it's not really about other people. It's never been like, oh, I'm trying
Winning.
to
It
compete
wasn't
against
about
this
winning
person.
against, yeah.
Like it's like no, like I want to do like the best like thing that people have ever seen. Like even as young as like, because I remember things like even when I'd be like in the first and second grade, like I would just throw myself into whatever project that we had and like just try to make it the most fantastic thing
Yeah.
that any first grader has ever done.
And what was the reward on the other side when people were like, Dre is super, like, she's SuperDre? Like, what was
I
the
don't know.
takeaway, or was it just more of an exercise of like your brain
It's like I
figuring out
just
a
wanted
problem?
to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's amazing. Well, so the part of you that I really want to explore that I don't know a lot about is just you. I know you have this whole entrepreneurial side. It's tech related. You have companies, you have a startup, you have major clients in the tech stuff. So help explain a little bit about just the landscape of your day-to-day business application of like, how do you...
Yeah. So I work for a company that's called Emergent Holdings, and the group that I'm part of is called the Business Lab. And it sounds like exactly what it is. It is a lab. It's definitely an innovation lab where we're essentially trying to infuse innovation from the outside, like into the company. And that company is an unbranded affiliate of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. So a lot of the things that we touch are healthcare related, but we also expand farther outside of that, out of the traditional, like what you think a health plan would be doing. So we meet with startups a lot. A lot of my day is spent, talking to people that we may have pitched to us, or we just might have met somewhere in the ecosystem. It could be somebody that a venture capital fund has kicked over to us that we can sit down and talk to decide, like, is this something that, we either want to pilot, like, some technology that they have with us with, like, a small audience of people. Is it something we want to invest in? Is it something that we want to acquire? Is it something we want to acquire and merge with something else?
Yeah.
Is it like a joint venture that we want to form, like a completely new business that we want to spin up? So it's a wide range of work, and the work itself can end up being, I could be on the phone all day. I could be, in another state. A lot of the startups that we work with are not in the country. I work with a lot of folks from Tel Aviv. No day is really the same on that side of the fence. And then,
but this sort of incubator you have, it benefits Blue Cross Blue Shield or this other entity, unbranded entity, and making it more efficient, or is it on the user experience side? Talk about by when you say it helps the company, to do what better or innovate better? How?
Yeah, ultimately the thing that every large company is trying to figure out due to digital transformation that has pretty much destroyed the way a lot of these old companies have been working for a really long time. Like, you just can't work like that anymore. And big companies have a really difficult time trying to innovate quickly. So the only way to do that is to sort of pull from the outside. And I think, there's two big things. So one is diversification of revenue stream. Obviously, they know you can't be in this one lane forever. It's just not how it works, especially when companies like Amazon are diversifying into everything and doing an awesome job at it.
They're even talking, and they're also talking about doing healthcare stuff too, like doing their own insurance plans.
Oh, you should have seen just general industry panic, in healthcare at the moment when that whole Amazon Berkshire Hathaway, everyone's like, oh my God, what is about to happen?
Wait, these people are going to solve what everyone hates about healthcare and cover
in
more
5
people.
Minutes.
Yeah, and it'll probably be to your door in 2 minutes, on a drone. It's just insane. So yeah, that disruption's good in some way for your business because you're thinking about how to help companies fall forward through that process and not just be stagnant. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, it's the not being stagnant. It's making sure that they don't get so disrupted that they're out of business. But to be honest, that's in my mind. Hopefully I won't get dinged for this, but I'm not saying I don't care about what the company does from a revenue perspective. Of course I do because I get paid. But
sure.
But ultimately, when you're talking about healthcare, it has to be about people. And it has to be about people first, because the main time when people are interacting with an insurance company is when something has gone bad. So the last thing you want to do is add to what is already a stressful situation. Yeah. It could be you just got diagnosed with cancer, you have a family member who now has a chronic disease that they're trying to manage, and nobody understands how this stuff actually works. So a lot of the stuff we've been focused on is how do you become a partner with these people to keep them healthy? Because it's cheaper for the business when you keep them healthy, and people are happier when they're healthy. It's how do you keep them healthy?
And less engagements they have when they're less frustrated.
Yeah.
When you're already stressed to you're already in crisis at some point, and then some blip happens, and then it's very easy to project all that on your insurer or your doctor or both.
Oh, for sure.
And so,
no news is good news, to them and to us, to be honest. Like, it's like I used to work at DTE and we used to joke, like, nobody cares about us until they flip the switch and, like, the light doesn't come on.
Yeah,
That's
for
the
sure.
only time people care about a utility is when something doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or you get a bill that's really high.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so.
Yeah, cool. So how did you evolve from, were you interested in, did you go to college? I'm imagining you went to college, of course. Where did you go?
So Grand Valley is where my undergrad is from. Go Lakers. Woo.
Allendale.
Yeah, and I studied, I studied business there, and I had a minor in music, too, so
And
I had
then
no idea what I was going to do with that, but
business
here we are.
with a music minor.
Here we are.
Well, SuperDre's a business,
Yeah.
I guess. You have to manage all those income streams.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that that was probably like the best, smartest thing that I did was try to, like, if you already know how to do like an artistic thing, it's really rare that you need somebody to tell you how to do that better.
Right.
But what you do need to figure out is how to actually make a living off of said artistic thing.
Well, that's
So,
important because I'm an artist first. I would think of myself as an artist first, trying to communicate some type of story, whether it's in a photo, a single photo, or in a video production. But that's a really great practical point that I think a lot of artists are so in their right brain. They're not really detail oriented. They're not really thinking about fundamentals of business. And most artists don't know what to charge for anything. And that's nobody's fault. It's just, it's a unique thing when you create something and then you have to create a market and assign a value to what you do in your talent.
which is entrepreneurship, which is why I think they should probably have more of those classes, I think, than anything else. Like,
yeah. Do you think it's helpful to think of yourself, whether you're a photographer, or a DJ, or a painter, or a writer of a book, or a app developer, as a sole entity, as this is my startup, this is my business?
I think so, because I can say, like, even when I first started DJing, I didn't think of it like that, and then once I started to think of it that way, like, everything sort of changed. Like, because then you're not so, like, yes, you're still going to be focused on, like, the art of it, but it makes it easier when you look at the other stuff, like, as a business. Like, I actually think it eases up on some things, because then you start to be really intentional about why you would do something, why you need photos for this or that, why you need to pay somebody for this service. Like, then everything starts to make a little bit more sense. But like, as long as you're doing it with a sole artistic mind, it's really hard. But if you still keep this stuff like 70% and then get the 30 in order, it makes the 70 easier.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really the hardest part. I don't know, there's always those flashpoints of frustrations. You don't seem to be too afraid of failure, though, at least of an idea or starting something that just peters out and runs out of gas. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like, how you've addressed some things that didn't really work out great, Dre? When you're trying to impress the world now with everything you're doing.
Yeah.
How do you handle it?
I mean, I don't know. I've had stuff that didn't work out. I had a startup before this one that I'm working on. I had one before that with a partner, with a co-founder, and to be honest, like, didn't go that great. I mean, it was a great idea, but like, a series of events happened and like things didn't work out, and I don't know. I didn't really feel like it was like, sometimes I looked back and I was like, dang, like, I feel like that was so much time, like, that I don't like
you
I don't
wasted
say
time.
Wasted,
Yeah.
But like, then now as I'm building what I'm currently building, which is, quite a bit different than what we were working on, there still was so much that I gained out of that process, and like, I had to look at it like that, because it really was like just around like managing like people and personalities and all that stuff. Like, I think has like way better, like, made me equipped to deal with some of the stuff that I'm dealing with now. And I don't even think I realized that really at the time. So.
Yeah. How do you, I hope this doesn't sound like a dad stupid question, because I always frame it that way, and I'm just, but I've had, one of the guests that's coming up, we did her podcast earlier, but she came up through the radio industry, and it was just like a boys club and all this other stuff. Have you found like points in the entrepreneurial space where it's like, I'm feeling kind of this brushback, and it's something about being a woman or being a woman of color or whatever it might be. Has that been any obstacles for you?
Yeah. So yes.
Can we get real about that? Because
I think the hardest thing for me I have found, and it doesn't matter if it's my startup or even if it's on, my emergent holding side of stuff where I'm still in the ecosystem. The ecosystem is just still like super white, very male, and to be honest, kind of old.
Yeah.
So in those environments, like every single time, like if I'm going to like a summit for like venture funds or like angel funds or whatever, there is a 99% chance that I am going to be the only one in that room who looks anything like me.
Right.
But like there's a good chance I might be the only woman. Sometimes there's a few sprinkled, but like the number's really small. I'm definitely always the youngest person there.
Yeah.
And I'm probably for sure the only black person there. Yeah, I'm probably the only any other thing.
Right. Yeah.
So it doesn't usually bother me, but there are times like where I've had to like legit have a little pep talk with myself, like in the bathroom, like, okay, like this is not that big of a deal. Like you're supposed to be here, but it is that feeling of like it's like you're the one thing in the room that's like the big red button that doesn't quite like fit in with everything else.
And that's something that I'm putting myself in the front of that line is just to be aware that like we just have the privilege of not thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not
we think about it all the time.
Yeah. And that's an amazing, if more people realize that, I think that would be helpful for all of us, just from many different perspectives. But do you ever find it to be an advantage? Like, because people will look at you.
Yeah,
and when you do speak up, they're
more
like,
noticeable.
what's this? Well, but then when you double down with your expertise, your passion, and your knowledge, you're like, oh, okay, now it's about what you're saying.
Yeah, so like it always starts out as this like, why is she here?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, like then when I start like talking about like what we're doing and explaining things, and then when they realize like I can make decisions on stuff, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. So she does have a reason to be here. But it's always that like, it's never assumed that I'm there for a reason until I start to say things, and then they're like, "Oh, she's actually smart." like, "Oh, gee, thank you. Yes, you should probably."
What about me? What was it about me that might have projected that that wouldn't come to fruition?
But I've had people after meetings all the time like, "Oh my God, like you're very intelligent." Like it's some kind of shock. Like, okay, like I didn't come say that to you.
Because
It is. Bias is a thing, and it's hard. And if you're not intentional about breaking it, then it's going to continue to be a thing.
Yeah.
So even just tiny conversations like that with somebody that someone else may have made a lot of assumptions about, then that helps to break down those things.
And it happens one by one where, you don't. And many years ago, bring us to Detroit, as I started a portrait project in Detroit like 7 years ago and did a Kickstarter campaign. And I started to meet a lot of entrepreneurs and artists and people who had recovered from addiction and just like the whole side of hardcore Detroiters that aren't leaving. They love the city. And this was 6-7 years ago when the city was not in the place that it is now. It was starting to percolate a little bit. But I'm really interested in your east-west perspective because you're from South Haven area. You've lived in Grand Rapids. You've lived full-time for a couple of years in Detroit, and maybe still, I'm sure you're back and forth a ton.
All the time.
Are there any takeaways? Because we talk about bridge building all the time between the east-west Michigan gap of Detroit and Grand Rapids. So what's your impression of living hardcore in each city? And, not just you're not there for a weekend to party. You're like doing business there and you're living there.
Yeah, and my connection with Detroit, actually, so most of my family, I have a lot of family there. And my parents actually lived there before they moved to South Haven. They moved to South Haven because they didn't want us to grow up there.
Oh, got it.
Because they moved I think it would have been, my older brother was born there. So I think they moved in 79 or 80 or something like that. But so that's the main reason why they
straight up
moved
just
there.
were not raising a family in
Yeah,
Detroit.
my dad grew up there.
Yeah.
And like, he had, so I would have had an uncle, but he got shot like when my dad was in college. Like, he just was not here for the idea of, us growing up like in the inner city. So
He was shot and killed.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I've never met that uncle before.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they were like, nope, we're not doing this. And my dad ended up getting a job like in the South Haven area, and so that's all I know. But we used to spend summers in Detroit with like relatives. Like my grandmother lived there, so the move wasn't like a hard move.
Right.
And but yeah, the two places are very different. And I always say that like there's everything that I hate about Grand Rapids is like what Detroit like has. Everything I hate about Detroit is like what Grand Rapids has. And so I do wish that the two could get together a little bit better.
Can you go specifically into some of those things that are like those 2 or 3 things that's like, oh, I hate this about Grand Rapids, but I have my own, but yours.
Yeah. So Grand Rapids is the same. It's almost like everything is like this push-pull, like kind of relationship with things that I love about it and hate about it. So the conservative nature about Grand Rapids, which largely comes from like religion and stuff here, while that's annoying for me as a creative, because sometimes it just seems like people are always trying to like not let you spread your wings and fly the way you want to. It also, I think, is what contributes to people being relatively nice. I don't even
West Michigan
even
nice.
if it's fake, like at least they're nice.
Yeah. But it is sometimes a veneer.
Oh, for sure.
It's like in
100%.
the South, it's like where they're like, hey, sweetie. Everyone's like, there's just a cultural thing.
Like
That's
we know it's BS, but at least
Right.
at least people are trying.
I'm not saying that it's all fake, but there is that quote about West Michigan nice.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, you're just being nice. You won't tell me the real problem. You'll make up another problem that doesn't hurt your feelings type of nice.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I think that same conservatism and that same the religious side of things is what gives people this false sense of everything is awesome, when in reality it's awesome for some people, but it's not necessarily awesome for everyone here. Whereas I think, a larger city like Detroit, there's problems that are obvious. People know about it. People talk about it. No one's stupid. It's right in your face.
Just
you
driving
see
around,
it. Yeah. And what I love personally, as a creative, I have never been anywhere in the world that I think inspires me as much as Detroit always has. It doesn't matter. I've DJed in places all over the world. There's still Detroit is still hands down my favorite place to play. It's my favorite place to consume other creative things, because so much just comes out of nothing. So it's so authentic and so real. And a lot of times it's mostly my friends doing the stuff too, which makes it even more awesome. When you can see people that, I've known for a long time who I've seen them go from here to here. It's crazy. So I don't know. I appreciate that you can do a lot with very little, and because there's not as many rules to things and as many regulations and this and that, you can legit kind of make the world as you want it to be for now. That's starting to change.
Well, were you going to contrast that with something with so Detroit's the most inspiring place?
Yeah. The frustrating part about Detroit, for obvious reasons, is just the messed up infrastructure of things. And I don't mean physical infrastructure, although that is definitely part of it, but it is you're seeing a broken city. The literal infrastructure of the city has failed people. And I used to tell people, you can find out everything you want to know about Detroit and why it will piss you off sometimes, no matter how much you love it, just by try to do one thing, execute one thing at the county building. If you just go in there and you just see the chaos and the craziness and the inefficiency and the lack of process and all that, it will literally blow your mind. And it's gotten better, but it's still really challenging, and you can tell it makes everything that people have to do there hard. So you have to come up with workarounds for everything. So what you're seeing in Detroit is hundreds of thousands of people coming up with workarounds for their everyday life, and then all of a sudden now they're like, wait, no, we're putting rules in place. And people are like, wait, whoa, what? Like, this whole time.
Where were you 15 years ago?
We've been living
was,
like this, and now you're trying to tell us that we have to do it differently. Well, are you putting other things in place to make sure that, like, you know, this is going to happen responsibly and all that? So it's
but that lack of it makes
place.
it such a time and talent and energy suck too when you have to plan half your morning, you know, from 9 to 1 o'clock to get through whatever you need to do at the county building or wherever other entity is. And those things just double down on your efficiency in life, be it work, be it whatever.
Yeah, little things like a ticket that you can't pay.
Yeah,
like,
I've had my share of parking tickets in Detroit, and it is not fun trying to get those.
Yeah.
And then I would wonder if I'd send in a check for it or whatever. It's like, I wonder if
it
that's...
might not get there.
It
You
might
just don't
not,
know.
You don't know, and that's like, well, what if I get another ticket, and then 4 months later, my car's booted.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, I sent in that. It doesn't matter. And, but the other part of that was... Yeah, the other part of it is just the systems that are broken that you have alluded to. But really, it's around people and the educational system. So we have these same outcomes that happen not just in Detroit, but I think everywhere in Grand Rapids, too. We have systems
Any
that
urban environment, I think, is largely facing the same issues right now. It just depends on what extreme it was. But yeah, for sure, like, going back to the crack epidemic of the 80s and then like economic downturn, you know, especially in Michigan for the automotive industry, like all you need to do is just put those two things together. You don't even have to take the other stuff. Yeah. Like those two things are going to have catastrophic, like, you know, outcomes for any city. It wouldn't matter where it was.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know why I thought of this because it's a dumb metaphor, but it's like if you have a clothes dryer, that's working great, and it's tumbling around, and everything's fine. But if you take a brick and toss it in there, it's going to just create chaos, and eventually it's going to break down. Yep. It feels like any one of those things was a turn in the automotive, disinvestment in Michigan, the economy crashing, and then you have largely unskilled workforces that are coming out of educational systems that are broken. Yep. It set it up for Detroit, which to me is a metaphor for like it's America just through I don't know. It's just, there's no place like it, but there's also a place there's very few places I've ever felt that sort of connection. I was born on that side of the state. I didn't live there for very long, but at the same time, I still have family and in-laws over there, and I've done a lot of creative stuff over there. But there is a vibe to the people that I just love that you can't really replicate anywhere else in the country. Even really diverse environments like New York or LA. It's just
different.
Detroit has its own signal. The people, it's like its own antenna that I love.
Yep.
So what's great about Grand Rapids?
Yeah, in Grand Rapids, you find a pothole on a street, you know exactly who to call and how to get it fixed. Like it's really that simple. I mean, like most of us like know the mayor personally.
Right.
Like that, like it's those kinds of things like make it just so much easier to get stuff done. Like if you are looking for a grant for something, chances are like you can probably call somebody and somebody can tell you what that is and who you need to talk to.
Or they have the connection to it.
Yeah,
it's like, you want me to introduce you to? I'll send an email.
Yeah.
I'll CC you on it.
And part of that is because of the size of Grand Rapids too. Like I'm fully well aware of that, but the infrastructure part is in place here. I think the challenge is how do you plug yourself into that infrastructure. And I think from what I have seen as a non-Grand Rapids native, but having spent quite a while here, it seems to be, it's difficult for people to do that, I think, when they have always lived here. Because I feel like when I moved here, I was just like, oh, yeah, it's again that, like, didn't know what I was doing, but I know what I'm trying to do, so whatever. Like, I didn't really have, like, preconceived notions about it. Yeah. But I think when you've always been in a place, you still have that, like, structure. You're dealing with the structures of what you are perceived to be able to easily do versus, like, something that you're blocked out of. And I've noticed that is a thing here. Like, a lot of people feel like that they can't. And I didn't feel like that because I wasn't from here.
Right.
But like if I had been, like I easily could have been like that too. So
just the mindset.
Yeah,
of
like I get
I
it.
can't really try that. Well, that's amazing because you're in this startup ecosystem with not just your main efforts with Blue Cross, Blue Shields, but you have other startups. Talk about those commonalities, though, between music for you and your own art and that as a business and your tech firms and your startups. Like, where is all that pointing? Is there that overlap of like DNA that's all twisted together from Dre? You know, what part of that is all you?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, on the music side of things, I know what it's like to be like a touring musician with a management company who's managing stuff for you and like booking agent who's managing stuff for you and all these pieces and parts of things that they're hard to manage, even when you do have somebody managing some stuff. And mostly what I was trying to figure out, I'm just like, if it's been, I don't want to say it's been easier for me to figure it out, but I can tell, like, being like with my other musician friends, I think it's been easier for me to figure some things out, but I think that's only because like I had some experience and stuff in business and like on the tech side. So I would like make things easier for myself by using those tools. But a lot of musicians don't do that, and it's not their fault. It's just because like if you're not exposed to that other side of the world,
or even
like,
curious about it. I think a lot of people are like, there's a reason I just want to create music.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that I want to be a business person, but I think some people are suited to both mindsets. You know, they can be super creative and they can also be super business focused, which has been a goal of mine to consider all of that over the time as I've grown. You have to pay more attention to that. But specifically relating that, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like from music to tech, you have a business mindset, but your end goals with technology. So talk about the technology itself. Like you do coding. Do you do coding and stuff like that?
Yeah, not so much anymore, but I do some stuff. So where these two things kind of overlap. So it's like I've noticed the frustrations and everything, you know, on the side of the musician and what like the real problems are. And one of the main issues, and I talked to, I think, 72 musicians and bands over the last like 6 months. And there was a very common theme that kind of overlapped. And that was, okay, I have all this stuff, like social stuff and stuff from, you know, my distribution company and stuff from my label. And they're like, and we don't really know what is going on. Like, I actually had like a couple people, I was like, okay, so come over today, like we'll sit down, we'll go to Star Garden. I'm like, bring me all your stuff. I'm like, and let me look at it. I'm like, you tell me what you do and do not understand. So they just like bring this stuff. I don't know if anyone has ever seen what it looks like when you have a distribution deal. You get sent a spreadsheet at the end of every month, and it makes absolutely no sense unless you look at spreadsheets all the time, which only if you were in business would you ever do that. So largely, like, I'm on this quest right now of helping musicians basically, one, like, get all their data in one place, and two, help them to understand it, and then to be able to make some decisions based on that data for anything from, you know, when do you do releases? When do you, when do you decide to post things on social media? And then a step further from that is like starting to automate that process. So using AI to be able to have like actual suggestions served up to them, like, here's the places where you should think about doing a show in the next 6 months based on who your audience is that you can talk to, and helping to facilitate that relationship between venues and brands and all that too. So
that's great.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur on the music side and the business side, where you were alluding earlier before we got shooting, that there's definitely an intertwining of them and an end goal and a commonality. So speak to that, because that's a forward thinking vision that you're just not getting plowed over like a bulldozer every day with daily tasks. Like you've set a goal out of whatever that might be that you're going to tell me about now. Yeah. But like, you know, that idea of like, I'm not just trying to get through 2019.
Right.
I'm getting to 2029 or 20, whatever your
Yeah.
goal is. Yeah. So tell me about your goal setting and how all your efforts relate and sort of gel together.
Yeah, so I think I would say I probably spent the majority of like the beginning of my career being really intentional about like partitioning myself out of like what side of myself that I wanted people to see. And to be honest, that is extremely exhausting.
Yeah.
I have found. And I also realized that there's really no real reason to do it because all these things tied together are what like makes SuperDre. So with the music tech startup, like I would love for that to be at least the majority of my end game. Music is something that I'm extremely passionate about, but I realized like I don't necessarily feel like touring for the rest of my life either.
Yeah.
I love making music, and I also love the idea of making things easier for artists, and also really making things easier for labels and brands and stuff too to find the right people at the right time and all that. So those two things tie together like very easily. Trying to do a startup, especially a tech startup, is extremely intimidating unless you understand the ecosystem. Well, I understand the ecosystem because of my day job. So
Right.
I spend a lot of time in it. I know like a lot of the people at venture funds and angel funds and all that. So that also directly ties into it.
It's like a freight train of ideas
Yeah.
coming through.
Choo-choo.
Got a nice train. But you were talking about that, the ecosystem of startups, that, and that applies. How do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I mean, that directly helps me with my startup. I think of if I did not have that piece of knowledge, like if I hadn't worked in that, like for the last few years, like it's got to be extremely challenging for people. Like I get why most startups don't make it. There's so much that you don't know, and having access to that kind of information, like everything from understanding like, funds that the state can offer you, for starting like a technology business or, how to engage with people. Like I see pitches constantly, so I know what makes a good one and I know what makes it terrible. And like
Right.
things like that are not things that most people have access to. So that definitely helps me on that side of things. And then the fourth thing I've got going on this year, I'm actually co-chair of a design conference called Midwest UX. And it's mostly focused on user experience design, but also incorporates like service design and program design, experience design. So it's really like the full gamut of how do you make things that interact with people. And this is the first time where I've been involved in a multi-day event of this scale. And I wanted largely to really understand like the background of that, obviously while being passionate about design too. But I think understanding how do you even pull something like that off has been extremely valuable experience because on that music tech side of things, how I have the business model right now, there's a good portion of it that's going to be very event-based. So like while I have thrown events before, I've never thrown anything of this magnitude.
Sure.
So this also kind of feeds into that and helps me understand like the back end of things, frankly, like without a lot of the risk, for me, like it helps me understand it better and how to like have an event that's good that people can interact with that they really love.
Yeah.
And then the fifth thing, I have
We're running out of
a spirits
fingers.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 5 is all I can handle. I tell people like, don't give me 6. 5 is all I can do in 2019. But yeah, I've actually I'm partner in a spirits company called Motu Viget Spirits, and our first release actually will be out in just a few weeks, and that is a sparkling wine. It's a brut sparkling wine.
You guys had a great launch. It was
Yeah,
everywhere, and it looked like an amazing day. How did that come about?
Yeah,
because
it was
you have some
great.
interesting partners in there. Some of them I would love to have on the podcast at
Yeah.
some point. But yeah, how'd you get into the sparkling wine / champagne / prosecco / whatever world it is?
Yeah, so I have some friends of mine actually that Jonathan Jelks, who I met when I first moved here. I shoot in 2005 or something like that. When I first moved to Grand Rapids, he was one of the first people that I met. We've been friends ever since, and we used to always say like, we're gonna work together one day. But we're both always like, we both do a lot of stuff, like a lot of entrepreneurial things. And like finally we figured out something. We're like, yeah, like we can totally do this. So it's myself, Jonathan, Jameel Robinson, and Willie Jackson, who most people know as Willie the Kid. He's quite a successful music artist who is originally from Grand Rapids, lives down in Atlanta now. And, sorry.
Was that me or you?
I think it was me. I don't know.
Actually, it was me.
Oh.
Sorry. So Willie the Kid.
Yeah, so so it's us like really deciding like what can we do in Grand Rapids that like helps add to the cool factor that is also something that's locally produced, locally sourced. We're actually the partnership we're working with St. Julian's. They do all of like the production and bottling and everything for us.
They're a big winery.
Yeah, long history here.
Down by your neck of the woods too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, long history here, like in the state of Michigan, and Motu Viget means strength and activity, which is the Grand Rapids city motto. And so we kind of wanted to do something that was a direct tie back into the city we live in. So.
Yeah. And it's all minority partners, which is, you don't see many of that, especially in like the luxury beverage sort of, maybe that's the wrong term, luxury. I think it's hard to create an alcohol like distribution company of your product, and then
there is. I mean, there's a reason why we know about Ciroc because of Diddy and Douce because of Jay-Z, because there's not a lot of them. So this sparkling wine is the one that we're starting out with first, and then we got our eye on some other.
So
releases.
let me talk about that for a second, because you when did the idea for that come? Like, what crazy? Like, who said it first? I think we need or did it come out of organically? Tell me about the genesis of that to just a couple weeks ago you're unpopping and you're premiering it. So this is the interesting thing and this is why I think there should always be diversity in the people that you work with, the workforce too or whatever, but even how you decide to partner with people. Because the one thing that I will say, and I feel like I'm usually working with guys a lot anyway, but the thing that I really appreciate about working with guys sometimes, I think that I've noticed, is they have much more of it's like an impetuousness of yep, this is the idea, execute, let's just get it done. And it happens so fast sometimes that I'm like, whoa, wait, there's details that we've got to talk about how we felt about things.
Yeah, so it's funny, John and I, over the last probably couple years, just either, talking about business or working on stuff together, it's an interesting relationship because he's so let's just do it, let's just get it done. And I'm whoa, there's details, and it's all about the details. So we got to tie these two things together. So it's been interesting that, first when, I think it was Will that actually originally came up with the idea because he was I want to do something and I had heard they were talking about it, and John came to me and we were discussing it. He was we're going to do the spirits thing, and I was well, wait, so I started asking all these questions, and then we just decided I'm just going to be part of the business too. So so then I made an investment and all that, and since then it's, to be honest, things actually rolled pretty quickly. But it's been a great relationship. I like the way that we kind of vibe off of one another, and when it comes to a lot of the business stuff and keeping stuff tight, that's when they're just Dre, just let Dre do her thing. We're not gonna get in your way.
Well, that's cool. It was cool to see that it could happen that quickly, especially with a partnership. Before you can sort of distribute your expertise across that launch or whatever it might be, everyone contributed their own sort of perspective and acumen around it, right? So, but I was and it also seemed to me, and I'm not downtown as much as I used to be, but that came out of nowhere for me in a great way. Yeah, it was what? Yeah. These people, sparkling wine produced here, and it's about Grand Rapids, and it's from GR and all these people. That just was a great launch. So the next step is what? More distribution and getting shelf space, or we're just trying to figure out how far to scale production, right? Yep.
So next step, actually, so it will be in Meijer stores in about 4 weeks.
Which is no easy task, by the way.
Yeah.
If you could just draw it out, we'll just be in Meijer.
Yeah.
There's so much competition for shelf space, and just especially in the wine and liquor categories, that's a huge feather in your cap.
Yeah, it's great. So that happens in about 4 weeks, and then from there we'll be expanding out. So there's quite a few event partnerships and stuff that we'll have throughout the summer. We're sponsoring some things, and then the next step, a little bit further out, I know the guys want to go faster, but I'm always like, whoa, will be that we've got our eyes on a different sparkling wine, most likely probably a sparkling rosé. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's a hugely
Which I love.
popular
Love
category.
rosé.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Yeah, that's was a cool thing, and seems an extension of everything. Like when I was like, Dre's involved with sparkling wine, and I was like, well, that seems out of left field, and it's really not at all.
Really
it's
not.
just another startup.
Yeah.
There, you have to be. It's the same application of whether you want to be a successful DJ or launch a particular type of product like a sparkling wine or an entrepreneur in that space. It really is all parts of the same you and brain that's going to drive that. And it's really driven around the excellence. The other thing that I thought about it was this is going to be a great product because I don't think any of those people, and I know Jonathan a little bit, and I know you better than him, but I just knew that you weren't going to do anything that wasn't excellent,
Yeah, I'm extremely particular about things.
Yeah.
Like everything from, and they know this too, like that's where they're like, this is great that like you're on the team because like I do pay attention to like those details because I'm like, everything is important. Everything from like what the label looks like to what the foil is like on the bottle, like all those things are extremely, even how the rollout is, like who gets invited and who does this, who does that, like what are the other things served
there,
at the
but that's
party
not
or
the
whatever.
point.
Yeah.
I didn't see the invite, but that's
It's a
not
small
that's-
place.
Yeah, it was a very small patio where it was launched. I will
Yeah.
give you that. No, I'm just kidding. But it was exciting to see that, and now the push behind it. It seems like there's still there was such an impact that there's still some puddles going out, and you're just really getting started. So that's cool.
It's exciting.
Anything else you're really excited about within your current other 4 projects that are sort of like that, or are they all in that sort of cooking phase?
So I think really it's, I would say like outside of, my day job, which, that stuff, it becomes so ingrained that it's almost like autopilot.
Right.
The stuff that I'm working on outside of that, I would say probably my main focus is still like my music tech startup. And I don't know if I mentioned the name, but it's called Fortify. And what I'm mostly going to be focused on here over the next about 6 months is in order to make this automated process work that I've come up with, I need more data. So a lot of that will be spent acquiring data, seeing what I can get for free, also finding out what I need to pay for.
Yeah.
And then I have some pitch competitions coming up myself to possibly just get like, a little bit of funding so I can add more to the engine.
Right.
'Cause the more that's in the engine, the better results, that I'll get. From
It's more
stuff.
horsepower.
Yeah.
Well, and talk to a minute, because I think people have a misconception about grants and pitch competitions and sort of like, catalyst grants or whatever you want to call them. Just getting prepared to enter a grant competition or do a pitch, it's as much a part of your job as like developing the business. Like you have to be finding those grants, contact info, deadlines, writing things that sort of skew your idea to help speak to what maybe the grant's goals are.
Yeah.
There's that whole, so what is your strategy other than just like, I am committed to spending time to get more seed money?
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly now some of the times that I'm spending at home, on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, and I'm on my laptop, like researching like what's out there, finding other companies. I haven't really found any startups that are doing what I'm trying to do on the music side of things, but there's some that the model might be the same in another industry, and I try to look at like, okay, well, who did they pitch to, and like how did they do it, and try to understand like where the overlaps and stuff might be. But yeah, in general, the internet is a great resource. Like, and I tell people all the time, like the information's out there. Like really all you have to do is look for it. There's tons of YouTube videos that teach you how to do everything from, a 20-minute pitch to one that's 60 seconds. So, I mean, part of what I think entering those things is important, especially as a startup, and I think especially like if you're a female-founded startup, I think is to do as many of those as you can but intentionally. Don't just like a shot in the dark or whatever. Be intentional about the ones that you're doing and try to win all of them. But be intentional about the ones that you're doing and do them, because usually putting together the pitch will help you stress test the business model stuff. Like, because you're not going to be able to pitch to somebody for 15 minutes and just skip over what the value proposition is, or like what the analysis is for the market, or like when do you think you'll be profitable, even if it's made up. Like, right. All those things still need to happen in order for you to get from point A to point B with anybody. It doesn't matter like who it is. So preparing for those competitions actually helps you flesh that stuff out, which I think is really good.
Well, I submitted for just a simple thing through the Start Garden 100, where they award $1,000 each to 100 ideas. And just writing that helped me formulate it. And through that process, it's like just putting it down and articulating it in words out on a keypad challenges you're thinking about it, because otherwise everything seems like this great abstract idea.
Yeah.
And if you can't probe it and test it as you're writing it, it's probably not a very good idea.
Yeah.
Or if it falls apart that quickly, you're like, I'll cancel my submission form real quick.
Well, and that's the whole point of it is like, okay, does this person know their idea well enough that they can explain it in 90 seconds? Yeah. Okay, cool. If they get past that point, you get $1,000. Yeah. Like, and you're essentially using that $1,000 to like get your life in order before the real thing that you're demoing on demo day. And I mean, there's a process, but there's a process for the reason, like a process for a reason that helps you figure out the 90-second pitch. Then from then on, you can use that, hopefully that $1,000 to like get the broader stuff in order, which means you might have to meet with some people and you might have to buy some materials and stuff like that. So
for you personally, I mean, you seem to be interested in a lot of different things. You have your, 5 major projects in 2019 alone. Does anything for you replace just the hustle and grind of getting at it every day? You mentioned, researching late at night on a Tuesday. It's like it doesn't stop, but align that with passion. I mean, would you do anything else?
I do think that I would like to. I always say, like, I'm on a sprint in 2019. Like, I have a purpose for everything that I'm doing. And part of that purpose is to not be doing all of these things forever, or at least like pare them back to the point where, some things either phase out or they're just kind of like on autopilot and it's more like a oversee kind of thing. But as far as like passions, like I realized that, even with the stuff with the startup, like versus the one that I was working on before, if you align things with things that you really like I love music. It will always be like my first love for things. So like it made absolutely no sense for me to be involved in a tech startup that didn't have something to do with music. Like that's like, and when I really thought about it, because I had a real frustrating moment at like the end of last year, just with like everything. Like I had just moved back here and I was exhausted and tired and everything just seemed crazy and things weren't quite like working the way that I wanted them to work. And then I feel like the reason why was because I was doing stuff that I shouldn't really have been doing. Like it was like I had to be like, remember who you are. Like these are the things you really love. These are the things you're really good at. Like you're good at tech, you're good at music. Why are you not doing these two things together? So it helped me just kind of retool some of the stuff, from the previous idea that I was working on, and then be like, no, like this is the thing, and everything just like boom came together so quickly, it just made sense. Yeah. So.
Well, that's when it's aligned with all your energy and like your central core, right? Because I think we all know pretty quickly that voice tells you when you're down an inauthentic path for yourself. It sort of self-guides itself.
Yep, that is true.
Last question about travel. Mm-hmm. You travel a bit. You try to get away a couple times a year.
Try to get away, yeah.
So bucket list, either places that you would go back to in a heartbeat or places that are like your top 2 bucket list places.
I want to go everywhere. My main places I really want to go, I would like to go to the Maldives before climate change destroys it.
Underwater entirely, yeah.
I really want to go there. And I really want to see the pyramids before those also get destroyed.
That's on my list, too. I've been trying to go for 20 years to do a photo project.
Yeah.
And there was always like some horrible unrest or like tourists get killed in a bus, and I was like, I'm not going this year.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything like in the Middle East, I really want to see.
Yeah, me too.
I still would really like to go to Israel. I'm hoping, like for work reasons, actually, that I can kind of have a chance to get there. I want to see Jerusalem. Like I want to see Tel Aviv. Like I have some DJ friends who live there. Yeah, I mean, I have like I don't know. I want to do everything.
Yeah. All right, Dre. Well, I really appreciate you coming in. I know that we'll work on another project, a photo project for you. I can't wait to do down the road. That'll be cool. And but I just love hearing all these different sides because it does inspire me. Just like even starting this podcast, I don't have any revenue stream for this. Like this is a passion project that hopefully will get some legs and go. So the fact that you would come on and just share a little bit more about yourself, and this is super cool. So I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You got it. And next time, sparkling wine, bring it.
Yeah, I know.
And
I should have brought
party,
some.
I need an invite to the next big party.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Well, I hope to make it to that party one day, but that's on Dre. I put out the energy out there. I put out that sort of pathetic ask to be invited to no doubt what would be some cool parties coming up because everything that Dre does turns out to be super cool. And anyway, it's on you, Dre. I'm here waiting for the call and the email, the evite, whatever it is. The more exclusive, the better. If you want a guy like me ruining everything, I'm the first to show up and kill the vibe. Anyway, head out to fullexposurepodcast.com. Check out Dre's episode page. I put some links there. You can find her on social media. You can check out a few other things she's involved in. And it's just a beautiful page to land on. Read more about her bio. See the portraits we shot in the studio. That's the whole premise of this podcast, man, is people come to my neck of the woods here, and we do a portrait shoot, and then we sit down and have a conversation. So anyway, also, if you are at all interested in partnering with us, man, do we have some big plans for this year to grow the podcast, and there's ways if we have some partnerships in place with people that we seem to vibe together and have a good fit, we could do a lot more. And I'm just excited. I'm excited about our growth to this point. And just reach out to me, and we can talk about partnering on the podcast and really sort of push this thing throughout 2019. And but most of all, just have a great week, man. Everybody, life's good. It's there for the taking. Let's just slowly kind of just grind this out and have an awesome week. All right, take care, everybody.